we are rolling into Costa Mesa. This is where pretty much everything started, in the epicenter of graduating high school, coming down here, living in an apartment right after the divorce, and then coming into getting cool industrial units with my buddies and us sharing spots and things like that. But this was an important part because Newport Boulevard right here was where the first place that I set up, which was called Rock and Java at the time, which is a really good coffee shop. This is right before the big, Starbucks boom and all that. There'd be like 150 people out on the patio smoking on the, Friday, Saturday nights. I just went up to the owners. I'm like, guys, is it cool if I paint here? And is it cool if I just set up and I put up all my stuff? And they gave me permission. I entertained all the guests for the time that we were there and handed out business cards. And next thing I know, celebrities were walking up and asking for business cards. It was wild. But the thing that I loved about it is like my studio was right behind it. I could just pull my truck right up, bring my gear over, set up, paint. And next thing I knew, there was just like this massive network here in Costa Mesa. What makes Costa Mesa so awesome and special is it has been and continues to be a birthplace of like being the epicenter of influence across the nation in the surf, skate, motocross, fashion, sunglass companies. But this is, we're on the edge of Newport Beach, so it's Newport, Huntington, and Costa Mesa sandwiched right in here. And there's just been all this amazing small business, apparel companies, Hurley, Quicksilver, Burton Snowboards, Smith Sunglasses, Black Flies was down here. Everything back in that day, everything was here, and it's just hopping. And Southern California, the surf lifestyle, the skate lifestyle, the nightclub lifestyle, it was the best times to be able to go and paint live. And I capitalized on that. And luckily, all of these companies brought me in to do specialty products, create logos. Like when I was doing the Metal Militia project, these guys come walking in the studio, I'm like, we need a logo. And next thing I knew, the branding and the logo for Metal Militia, that was born out of an afternoon together hanging out with the guys. And but that's where other big clientele started coming by as well, like DeWalt Power Tools, and forming relationships with them, and Lexus and Toyota. That was very special. But it was the gym that I showered at every single day was down the street, and then I go back to the studio and I eat at all these places while I was building the brand. Sometimes it was Del Taco because that's all I had the money for. And other times it was go over to Ruth's Chris and have a steak. It just depends on what season and what things look like. But all in all, the reason why this whole area means the world to me is it's also next door, 2 minutes away is Corona del Mar, where that's where I moved when I came down with my mom and came down to Southern California. And my reference of where I wanted to live and what I wanted to do, that was really where it left the biggest impression on me. I was so inspired. It's not just a place to me. It's style, it's aesthetic, it's beauty, it's creativity. My good friend, Shelly, who's a manager and operator of A Market, and it's part of a big group of restaurants by the River Jetty Group. And these are just some of my favorite places to go. So hopefully Shelly will be there. Corona del Mar. This place has a lot of significance for me. A couple of things. One, This is where I grew up, boogie boarding every single summer. I would come down here. We lived on like 5 different streets here, and they're all flower streets, right? So when I moved down here from up north, this was just such a beautiful place, and spend the mornings down here eating chocolate croissants and having orange juice and hanging out and boogie boarding with my buddies. And I hadn't started school yet down here, so it was really just the transition of coming down to Southern California to live. And then what happened was, as I continued to like decide whether or not I was going to stay here, I just fell in love with the place. I just felt like there's a ton of momentum, and I really wanted to make a life down here. It's beautiful, and I would be drawing surf art. Rick Griffin was probably one of the biggest inspirations for me too, because that was one of the biggest inspirations for my dad, emulating his ink style and his artistic style. And so that was a starting point of really diving into my art before, so that was 13, 14, 15. But when I jumped ahead in my story to that crisis, that night, that crisis of my faith, what I was going to paint, what I was going to do, that's inspiration point, and that's this point right here. Yeah, so this is the spot. So when I was hitting that wall mentally and spiritually and just kind of asking God all those big questions on what do you want me to paint, what do you want me to do, this was the spot that I came to that night. That buoy that's out there in the middle of nowhere, sitting out in the dark and the fog of that night, sat on that bench, locked in my headphones. I was playing some Vangelis at the time, and I really was just asking, listening to that buoy and just going, hey, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to paint? I give you everything. He gives me that download of painting my story, painting the journal pages. And what that process really revealed to me was like, it was like a shedding, and there was like a lightness that came over me because I was able to get as quiet in my spirit as possible to then just like start letting go and having the permission to do it. Meaning every creative is going to get to a point where you're going to have to start to like shed skins. And a part of that looks like, I'm going to do what I think I want to do, but then you start to go, well, that's still either making to please them, making to make the sale, but it's not your true, authentic, genuine self. And so when I sat down and asked those tough questions, it was permission granted, go play in the sandbox, be the real you, and go absolutely into it full force with no concern. Here's the biggest part, that there wasn't a net below my feet. It was more so doing what the Lord asked me to do, while at the same time stopping and saying, hey, you're gonna be okay. And knowing you can execute and be creative, knowing that you're completely backed in partnership with him on that process. When the creator is speaking to a creator and you're in tune with that entrepreneurial creative spirit, boom, like it's the best creativity that you're ever gonna get. Why? Because I'm tapped into the ultimate creator. It's not my own selfish creations. So I'm partnering with him, getting all the best downloads that I can then go and execute on. So that was probably the first time that night that I really started to grow up in creativity, coming out of the womb of, I wonder if I can do this, and then proving the 10,000 hours and then mastering a skill. But then what story are you gonna tell with that amazing creativity? That's really the big question. I don't care how great you can paint. Very few people can tell a story. I don't care how great you can draw. Very few people can really tell a great story and heal the world with it. So there's all these little nuances of what makes this so dang special. One, this is where everything started with my mom. Two, if we go down the street, one of the first jobs I ever did was Fast Eddie's barber shop, and I hand lettered just like my dad did those signs. And so that was one of the first places that I did one of my first jobs. Down to, spending all the summers of growing up here and boogie boarding and hanging out. But specifically, if you look at Tower 5, that's the name of one of our companies as well. It's like we tied that symbolism of Tower 5, the lifeguard tower, into our family like legacy and what our whole family structure looks like. Corona Del Mar, big Corona right here. Some of the best memories and probably one of the most meaningful spots on the planet for me. So probably like 23, 24 years old, in the midst of the story of building the brand and building the company, one of the biggest leaps was actually getting a place. And, so when I talk about, getting the place, putting the drop cloth up, it being my own place, a place to be able to pour all my sweat and blood and tears of effort and money into building my brand. Came down here to Costa Mesa, started right here, took this first unit. The whole idea with this first unit was, this is where I was gonna live, this is where I was gonna paint, this is where I'd have a small office up front. And the reason why this was really an important part of the process is because this is where I had to go from being like, oh, this is just a little craft or a hobby or an amateur. This is where I wanted to become a brand. And that meant like branding the windows, all my corporate identity and stationery and shirts, advertising, logos. And I even remember having galleries that would say to me, it's like, dude, we want to carry you because you're a brand. They literally said that. They're like pointing to the logo. It's like, we want your logo in the magazine. We want to be able to see, because they started to realize that this was an actual brand and not just a person. And so perception for me is everything. And how you as an artist do that is really important for how you want to be known and what you want to be known for. So when I first took that first leap and really put all this money, and I had the big roll-up door in the back, I would just have people coming by from all over this area. I'm like, hey dude, can you paint this? Or hey dude, I want to do this new project. Or can you create this new clothing line and do all these new images? This was just like a hotbed because people now had a location, right? And the other factor for me was I didn't want to have a house and the office because I felt like I was doubling down and I would never be home because I was always at the office having fun. Those days are different now. Now I have it all on property to maximize that to where I'm not paying rent and building somebody else's story. I wish I'd have bought this building. I spent 20 plus years here. Now looking back, it was like, man, what if I would have just bought a bigger house back then, but I would have had a ton of people coming over to my house. So you just kind of have to play with the seasons of where are you raising children? I wanted to be home. I wanted to raise my kids. I didn't want to be away from them. I didn't want to be far. I wanted to watch them grow up. I wanted them walking in, getting hugs, sitting on my lap, kissing their heads as they went to school, driving them to school, and not feeling like I was losing time being in two places at once. The second part to graduating from this was taking the place next door. So I took over the other unit, same size. And so on one side I had where I lived and worked and did all my production and all the art. Next door was where I had all of the display. This is where this was show ready. This is where the guys pulled up, would walk in and just buy and drop big money on big art. The reason why this was important was I looked at the cost of having this place and I thought, well, I could give up 50% to a gallery, or I could just be my own gallery. And rather than ask for permission, I just chose myself. I picked myself. So same with my publishing. I wanted to print my own books and distribute them. I wanted to print my own clothing and distribute it. I wanted to be able to have all my art and do drop ship fulfillment. I wanted to be the publisher. I wanted to do the framing. I wanted to have all aspects of everything that I could have my hands on and full control over my brand. And it was really important to me. So if somebody's going to walk into my world, they're walking into my world. Why do I like that? Because almost look at being an artist like being a music artist. You're gonna be on a record label, right? Well, you're sharing space with the record label's talent and artists. The same thing for a gallery. Is the gallery a part of, meaning you're gonna have your collection as a part of 5 other artists in there because a gallery owner wants to make art from everybody, right? Well, for me, I'm like, no, I want my art to be the only art in the gallery. And the second part of that is watch. When I create wines, mermaids, fairies, angels, official licensed artists for Arturo Fuente, Disney, Kid and Me, so what's that, 5, 6, 8 genres of art? Now when you walk into the gallery, you do think that there's 8 artists in there, but it's actually me, just one guy, a full brand, diverse portfolio of all these different images that can completely be options depending on the lifestyle that walks in the door. And it worked very, very well. There was something for everybody. And it showed a beautiful scope of work of what was possible, because when you do that as an artist, you show cross-pollination marketing. Somebody comes in for the cigars and looks at the cigar art and goes, dude, I love these mermaids. My wife loves mermaids, right? So now you're sharing the wealth around in your different genres, and having a wonderful place like this puts all the money in your pocket. Did it cost me $2 to $3 grand a month to be able to have this place? Yes. Did I make that? Absolutely. In one sale, I paid for the entire year. So this is what I'm getting at. The third part of what makes this special perception says, one, they're a brand, two, this person takes themselves seriously, and it builds a tremendous amount of credibility and authority. So when people walk in, they're like, dude, this is a legit business. This is a legit display. This person takes themselves seriously. There's an incredible, beautiful display. I can see how it's gonna look in my house. Like, there it is, lit. I remember I'd have tattoo artist, Travis Barker comes in, good buddy of mine, comes in and sees all the displays, and people would say things like, dude, I want my house to look like this. Well, there's a perfect example. Build and create the space where people walk into your world. Now, one of my courses is called the VIP events and pop-up shops and trade shows, and I give strategies and share with you those ways that you can do that even in your own house. Example, I wanted to turn my backyard into a full-blown VIP event where people are going to spend anywhere between 50 to 100 grand. How do I create a VIP experience in my backyard, bring in all of the tables and chairs and lighting and vibe and catering and everything like a wedding, put all the artwork around, drape them in black, light them really killer, and then do a lot of storytelling that night. The next thing you know, the whole place is bought out. These are strategies to think different as a creative, to leverage spaces like this, but then this served its time. I had this place, I had a 3-story loft as well. As the business grew, I consolidated both of these, put all the money into building an amazing studio behind our current property, built the lodge, and optimized every square inch of our home. All that money is going into our pockets, the best performing asset. So, is this place important? Yes. Is this where I cut my teeth? Yes. Is this where I had the dark night of the soul? Yes. Is this the building blocks? Absolutely. But I cherish this place. If it wasn't for this place, we would not have what we have now, and it makes me appreciate it all that much more.